Hello and welcome to the Estonian Model United Nations 2022 interview series, where we explore the topics and the people behind the issues that our world is currently facing. Today we are joined by a representative of the Estonian Ministry of Rural Life, Galina Uibos, and we will talk about food security, food systems, and sustainability when it comes to these topics. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Could you just tell us briefly about your expertise and your experience with these topics?
Well, I've been with the ministry for 10 years now, and I've covered pretty much a wide range of topics of the ministerial expertise in the field of international cooperation. Among other things, I was also posted in Rome, serving as an Estonian representative to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. So these topics, from the perspective of the United Nations and, of course, Sustainable Development Goals, are very dear to my heart.
Thank you. In your opinion, what is the most crucial aspect that actually hinders the development of innovative green technologies and their application?
Well, this is a very complicated issue, and as you know, it is a great concern all over the world, for the developing countries, but also for the developed countries. One good example of this issue being a concern, for instance, for the European Union, is the recent European Green Deal, which is an ambitious package of measures aimed at transforming European societies and European economies. What is the biggest challenge? I think probably the costliness of the green technologies in the short term, and their effectiveness mainly only in the long term. However, it should help, to commit to them the fact that we do not really have a good alternative.
And moving on with recent developments and the values behind those mechanisms, in your opinion, what are the basic norms that have to be enshrined in our society to ensure not only the promotion of green technologies for economic resilience, but also, let's say, the protection of women's political and economic rights?
There must be a general understanding that when women lack political rights and economic rights, opportunities, it does not only harm women, it harms everybody else in the society. It harms men and it harms children. When half of the potential workforce lacks education and political opportunities, it strongly undermines a country's potential for development. So political commitment, education and job opportunities are needed in order to have positive change. So once again, you cannot think that, I can have a great society if I take care of this group and this group, but I discriminate and marginalize this group. The society, as diverse as it usually is still a one unite organism. So you really need to take care of all the groups.
Thank you. And perhaps on this note, we will move on to questions concerning food security and sustainability. Could you please just briefly define for us what is usually meant by food security?
Food security is the measure of the availability of food and people's ability to access it. Food security is achieved when all people at all time have physical, economic and social access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs for an active and healthy life. It is important to remember that the absence of hunger does not automatically mean food security. Neither is food security a problem of the developing countries only, because nowadays poor quality diets and unhealthy food, together with the health problems that they provoke, are a huge concern all over the world.
What we should imagine in that case, what is meant by food systems?
Food systems include all actors, and they are value-adding activities involved into production, processing, distribution, consumption, and disposal of food products. It should, function unitely. So you do not focus on one component or another component.
And now, bearing those definitions in mind, could you just briefly describe what we mean by a sustainable food system?
Sustainable food system produces enough healthy, nutritious, and safe food of a low environmental impact for current and future generations. Sustainable food system is also economically efficient and socially inclusive and acceptable. To sum up, sustainable food system combines resilience of economy, environment, and health, and also social justice. So, for instance, if you grow a very nutritious cereal in a way that it destroys the environment, this is not sustainable. Or even if you do not harm the environment, but you organize the business in a way that it undermines the farmers' livelihoods, this is still not sustainable.
And now that we are familiar with the definition of a sustainable food system, could you point out the main challenges for ensuring sustainable and inclusive food systems in their difference in poor and rich countries, so to speak?
The main challenge is to cover all aspects of food systems, environment, economy, health, and social aspect, in a sustainable way, and also not elevating only one aspect while jeopardizing the other. That means you need different measures in different sectors, because food systems interact with many other key sectors like energy sector, trade sector, health sector, and the food systems themselves, they are composed by several subsystems like farming system or waste management system. If you want to compare this issue for countries based on the level of income, then again, speaking of this last one, waste management, which is a part of it, for instance, food waste. In high-income countries, the food waste is most urgent after the food reaches retailers. So the consumers buy too much food, they throw it away, or also supermarkets and restaurants, they throw away the food that is about to reach the best before date. At the same time, in low-income countries, the biggest concern in this particular subject is before the food reaches the retailer, because of the poor quality machinery or no machinery at all. When the yield is being collected, up to half of the yield remains on the field and just rottens there. Or, for instance, there is no cooling facilities to safely store fresh fruit, vegetables, fish, dairy, and they just, again, you cannot use this food anymore. The measures needed for sustainable systems to become better functioning would request different sectors to cooperate, and again, you can only aim at long-term impact there.
Now that we have the main aspects of sustainable food systems covered, could you please tell us if the food systems in the countries of the European Union have in any way been jeopardized by the inflow of refugees since the past decade?
The short answer is no, because if you talk about refugees, people who flee war, disaster or political persecution, then they are in such a weak situation that it is really hard to jeopardize anybody. But if you talk about migrants, then agriculture and food industry all over the EU and other developed countries rely strongly on the contribution of migrant workers. For instance, when the pandemic hit and the borders shut, preventing migrant workers from coming, it became obvious that they are essential for food industry and agriculture in general to function. It is, however, important to have a legal and regulated migration, because otherwise migrants are in a very fragile position, fragile to the abuse of criminal networks and human traffickers.
And perhaps to sum up the points that were covered, there's a lot of concern among young people who are following these issues and who have their interest in sustainability nowadays. What would be your, let's say, personal message to young people taking interest in those issues?
Never underestimate how much depends on you. In your own life and in the life of your country, in the life of your region, and eventually in the life of your generation. You do not have to become somebody with, dictator level of ambitions, but the contribution that you can pay is very important, and it can be very beautiful what young people will be able to achieve for themselves and for the world. So good luck.
Thank you so much for this powerful message, and thank you for providing us with your insight and your expertise on this complicated topic. Thank you.